Hey everybody, this is Geo Joe here today with a demo tutorial video on the AS Manager program. For today's video, I would like to show how you can set up the device groups option, and this allows you to be able to segregate your controllers and give access to users so where they can only access those controllers and then add or delete users to the controllers in their respective group. So to give you an example, let's say that you have a commercial building that has multiple individual tenants inside. The front door has GeoVision Access Control on it, and then also those individual tenants all have their own GeoVision Access Control on the door, but it's being managed by one AS manager. Well, let's say, for example, business A, you want them to only be able to add or delete users from their business and, control the doors right there, but maybe the building manager gets access to everything. This is a video that basically allows you to create those different groups, and then you can set access and grant privileges to certain people or different operator accounts. So let's take a look. When you're in the AS Manager, the first thing that you need to do is go into Setup and Devices. And we've already got several controllers added in here, but whenever you're doing the installation of the products initially, you'll want to keep in mind that you're going to need to create multiple device groups to make this work. So let's say, for example, the front door of the building, you're going to put it in the first device group. So you'll add it in right there, just like you normally do with a controller. Hit the plus sign and hit controller, or you can use the magnifying glass and search controller. So you'd add your, say, front door controller and the doors respective to that door right there, and any common doors maybe right inside the building that people would access, add them to that. And then let's say, for example, business A, you're going to create a second device group. I've made one right here called test group. And the way that you make a new one is right here above device group, just hit the plus sign and hit add. And then you can rename it whatever you want. So I'll rename this one and we'll call it client A, and then just hit enter and it'll save it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add the controller for client A's doors. So once you've got client A on the list, you're going to go ahead and add your controller that you're going to associate with client A. So we'll hit the plus sign here and select controller. And you can name the controller whatever you want. So let's say that you want to call it, client A, just to keep everything consistent. You can then click the drop down and you can choose which model of controller that you have, and then hit OK. And it will bring up your setup screen here for that controller. You will, of course, need to type in your IP address. I'm just typing in a generic IP right now. You'll need to type in the MAC address of that controller. Again, I'm just putting in generic information for this demo video. And then your username, password of the controller, and then the crypto key for GeoVision controllers is always the numerals 1 through 8. So once you enter that information, obviously on the left side here, just check however many doors that you're going to have associated with that controller. And then you hit OK. And you now see that we have the client A controller associated into the client A device group. Okay, so that's step number one. Now let's start to think about who we want to assign access to that device group. So we can go ahead and close this window right here. Our next step is to go up to Tools and then Operators. And when you first set up the AS Manager software, it would have had you already create an initial login. We have one here that we made called Admin. And if we're to click on it, you can see down here we have all of the device groups that you saw on the previous screen. And the admin gets privileges to all of those device groups. All right, now, another thing you'll need to be aware of are these read, write, and execute columns. Okay, so these mean different things. So basically, read means that you can see the data, like you can see who the users are. You can see user cards, their card numbers, and all of the data associated with them. Write means that you can add or delete users or make changes to the system. And then execute means you could unlock or lock doors on the system. Okay, so again, our admin under the supervisor account has full privilege to all of the device groups. Now, if we're going back to our client A example, where let's say you want to set it up to where only client A, a manager at that business, can control their doors and add and delete users with their controller only, you'll want to go to the user column here, and we're going to create a new operator account. And when we do that, you'll need to give it an account number. I'm going to call this demo 1. You'll need to give it a password. And then you can leave user level right here and then just enter a email address. And once you do that, you got to make sure that your password meets the criteria. And then once you do that, hit OK. And as you can see, by default, it has the device group of default checked right there. So we, for our example, are using client A. All right, so I'm going to give read, write, and execute privileges to this demo 1 account operator account that I just created. Now, another thing to be aware of is we are currently on the AS Manager tab, which means that whatever you're assigning right here is what they can do in the AS Manager software itself. If client A is going to be making changes remotely through a web browser, you'll need to click on the AS Web tab, and you'll need to make sure that those are checked for client A on that user. Okay, so again, AS Web is when you're making changes remotely through a browser. AS Manager is when you're making changes when you're sitting locally at the AS Manager PC. Now, you'll also notice up here in this section, there are different things that you can put tick marks next to. Like if you want the person to be able to set up access for the new employees or whatever, like give them a card and create schedules and all that, you'll want to tick that. Person data, obviously that's pretty self-explanatory, but you'll want to check what things you want the person to be able to do. And remember, if they're going to be accessing it on AS Web, make sure you do it right there. So once you hit OK, that account will now be active. And what we could do would be to go in to AS Web. And I'm going to first log out of our admin account. And then I'm going to now log in with the account that we created. And once you get logged in here, if we go in and look at the device groups, you'll notice that we just have client A with that controller there. And then we could also go in and now we can start adding users that would be associated with that controller that we added. Now, there's also the monitoring tab, which if you would have activated it in the previous screen, we would see that icon in here. And that's where you have the ability to lock or unlock doors. So make sure that you do also enable the monitoring option. And again, that will give them the ability to lock or unlock their doors. So this has been a demo tutorial on how to utilize the device groups feature and be able to basically segregate a building to where certain users only have access to add new employees into their group of doors. For further information on the GeoVision product line, please check us out at www.geovision.com.tw/US. Thanks a lot for watching.